Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to the 6 a.m. Run podcast. I am 6amrun.com CEO and founder, Hami Mahani. Welcome to our 6 a.m. Run studios here in Wilmington, Delaware. And I am very excited for this episode. Real quick though, as always, we are sponsored by 6amrun.com. That's who helps us pay the bills for these podcasts and things. And we thank you guys for always shopping and being a supporter in our community of 6amrun.com. But that's probably the last I'll mention product, as this podcast is about the lifestyle of health and wellness, which I always say, and I'll introduce you by name, but I always say you're your best introduction. Adrianna Hahn, welcome to the show. Please, for the audience, introduce yourself as only you would.
Yeah, only as I would. My name is Adrianna Hahn. I am an elite basketball trainer. Family friend of yours for a very long time.
Family.
Yep. Train both your daughters, a lot of your friends' daughters and things like that. And I myself have been not just an athlete, but a part of your 6 a.m. Run community. Tried your products both before and post recovery, and it's just been a blessing. Like everything that we've been combining so far has been great.
So let's start there. I don't know where I want to start with you, because I always tell you, one of the things I saw in you was a mini me, right? We've talked about that, entrepreneur. Right. Now, and this is a good thing, you're not answering to anybody. Does that make, in a good way, right? And that's, I think, what an entrepreneur is. An entrepreneur sees an issue or a need for something and wants to solve it, but do it their own way, right? But I also want to start with where that starts from. I have so many areas I want to go with you, coming from adversity on knee surgery twice, right? On ACL tears. Going to a high school that expects championships, and you're going through that, right? Like, I want to talk about that. I want to talk about your parents and your dad. The love I have for your dad. My love started for you with meeting him first, and him being a father I look up to as a father, right? And his expectations for his daughter, right? So there's a lot I want to start. But you're the guest. Start where you want. Tell us from the beginning where you want to start.
Sure. I mean, it's always about the approach, and so, like, our approach as an entrepreneur to our customers, and like my dad's approach to me, not only as a father, but trainer and coach in the house, outside. My trainer's approaches, my college coach, high school coach approaches, AAU. So, having been in multiple gyms and multiple environments and settings, you learn how to adjust your approach, but also keep it 100 at the end of the day.
Right.
And, like you said, not answering to anybody's calls. I mean, we'll answer that money call, that important decision call, or, if we want to create an idea, we'll do that. But, it's important to have multiple environments, multiple sources and things like that. So having all of that combined has just really helped me to grow into the person that I am today, and Hahn Hoops and what it is. It's more than just a basketball training business. It's a community, just like 6 a.m. Run, more than just a product.
Yeah, because your parents are bought in, your families are bought in, right? And when their kids come crying and saying this is hard, the parents are like, well, you're going back tomorrow. Yeah,
I mean, there's a way, education is always number one, right? So somebody's uncomfortable or doesn't really know, especially as a parent, like, how do I start this relationship with my child? How do I kind of listen to their questions and answers, but also trust and believe in the guidance from us? There's a way. And the road never ends. It's only until that student or that kid says, I don't want to really do this anymore. Okay, well, what do you want to do? Because whatever approach we were doing, we're going to put that somewhere else. There's certain goals and ways to go about things, and direction and discipline. So that doesn't change. And as long as that's emphasized, then we're good. And that's, it's really about character development and growth, and being able to grow around people or be a leader to help people around you grow. So, that's why I thank you. Like, look at where we're sitting now. It's just all these years. London's playing basketball. She's 9. But before, she was kind of, saw her as a girly girl, or just not picking up a ball, or just afraid to step into a, more of a all boys environment or a rough environment. So to see people, the kids, like, break some ice and and grow into the person and enjoy it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Enjoy their growth is key.
Well, there's problem solving. There's adversity. I should take that back. I want to make one comment. I said, about entrepreneurs, but one thing too, in terms of why my kids and with sports, there is teamwork, right? There, you wouldn't be where you are in life without a team, right? You had great teammates, in every level, right? You talk about trainers, right? So I do want to say that, and I've had, my bosses, right? There's people that I looked at the time, my parents, right? My oldest right now, I talked to her about my father. My father didn't let me do senior week. At the time, I thought, this monster, right? He doesn't want me to be cool or have friends. Now I look back on it, I'm like, wait a minute. He just didn't want his 17-year-old son down the beach drinking, right?
I mean, I was already in college before I graduated high school.
Oh, yeah,
I literally
had to go. Yeah.
At summer school, had to come back for high school graduation, get my diploma.
Yeah.
So it's like the direction that your father was taking for you ultimately kind of says the same for me on a college basketball scholarship. Like just those specific directions, those avenues that, stemming from education and making the right choices and, what's more valuable, what's the bigger picture.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where it is. It's your father, my father, and now us. One thing too, you say to kids where you've been, right? Now this is where I've been. You always tell your kids, but I think you can do. And we were just talking off camera, the potential, right? Where can you go? And if you invest, if you give this your all,
right?
You definitely did that. Let's go. Let's kind of start though. I think what we got to do as a Delaware person, and for everyone in Delaware watching this, you really came up from, like I said, not just. I'm trying to say the question in my head and then say it out loud. You came from a school that's known for women's basketball. I mean, when you do say women's basketball in Delaware, there is one predominant name that comes to everyone's mind, and that is Ursuline Academy. Your dad, again, speaking of your father, and shout out to Sim. Sim's my guy, and I hope when he watches this, hi Sim. Sim put you in there, right? He knew, Sim had the plan, right?
Yeah.
Like in his mind, he had the plan for you, where you're going to go, how this is going to go. But go ahead.
It's funny though, because he had a plan, but he didn't know exactly what the plan was. From a basketball perspective, taught me how to shoot, knew the mechanics, He just played basketball in the YMCA, but he's originally not from Delaware. He's from a small town in Virginia.
But he did his research.
Right.
Oh, wait, here's where she's got to go.
Right. So to put me in gyms, I mean, starting from first just us shooting in the neighborhood outside, and then, like you said, doing a little bit of background. And at that time, it was kind of Elena Deladon controlling the state, like not just women's basketball, but all over, and definitely the country.
Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy to have that in your back door when she's on a national map.
And say that your experience and people, I'm not jealous, but that you get picked up. I don't want to say the story for you, but you go to your first WNBA game with
something crazy story. Go to attend the Ursuline summer basketball camp. John Noonan was the head coach, but she's a high school counselor, senior year. She's got everything, all the acknowledgement.
Right.
So points me out in a group. I was always competitive from a young age. So one-on-one competition, I'm winning. Shooting competitions, I'm winning. Really trying to show my skills, stand out. I always wanted an audience.
Right.
Didn't matter where it was. But before that, my dad put me in the all-boys league at the West Center, Hicks Anderson Center in Wilmington. So, and that was very scary for me as a child. Like, I was the only white person, but also the only girl. And, when you're talking about it, the environment that I've created for Hahn Hoops now is just, one, invitation to all, but the ability for kids to grow around different diversity, but also understanding what diversity is.
I want to pause there on that, because I think also, too, what I want to say on that note, you now, in terms of because of that, I'll pull up with London, right? You will pull up in your, I'll say in your SUV. I know right now we'll talk, that's a different thing, but you pull up in your SUV and 5 kids. You bring kids from the city to the field house. Right?
Yeah,
So you now are like, wait a minute. No, I'm bringing the kids from the city to my workout, right? And you know that you have to help them get there, and you give them the ride, and you give back. So real quick, I want to say, you've created a very safe, healthy environment, but you took what you saw at Hicks, right? And you blend those, like I said, London, and you have everyone from every walk of life in the gym. And for that hour, nobody's better. Everyone's an equal student of Hahn Hoops.
Right. You have to give everybody a chance. You know, it's funny, those kids actually live the closest to the field house.
Right.
So it was like, why is it so difficult for them to get to this gym that's closest to them than anybody else?
Yeah.
But it really wasn't the distance. It's
Getting them there.
the ride, you know, who's home, who's around, you know, maybe multiple jobs, situations at the house is just very different. You know, a lot of my older siblings, my older kids who are the eldest of the family, you know, they can't just go about and do their hobbies.
Well, and by the way, that's not a class thing or like an economy thing. Just so you know, like my dad worked 9 to 5. My high school games were 3:30. My dad's not leaving. And this is again 30, 40 years ago.
Right.
My dad's not leaving his 9 to 5 job to watch us sons. You know what I'm saying? Like people work, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they just have to keep putting themselves out there, and, you know, definitely at a younger age, they see the world a lot earlier.
Yeah.
And you give them a lot of respect and credit for that, but then you also realize the big burden and toll that it has on, you know, what opportunities can they open for themselves? You know, oh, wait, no, they have to put the time in to get this money to do other things, X, Y, Z, not just for themselves, but for their family. You know, so it gets difficult, but there's always a way, right? Pick them up from school. You know, one went to Mount Pleasant. They could walk from my neighborhood from my house, boom. Hit one halfway to the gym, boom. You know, the other two go to the same school. All right, they're together already. Everybody get in the car.
Yeah, it works
so
out.
It works.
You make it work, yeah.
But, you know, they wanted to do it too. They were all on board together, and I think that's what kept it alive. And then when we got to the gym, you know, it's competition, right, when we step on the court. But, you know, with Elena going back to the summer camp, you know, having stood out like that, you know, I saw the real world a lot early too.
Yeah.
I'm in 6th grade, and she takes me, she goes, I'd love to take you to a WNBA game. And I go home that night and tell my parents, and they don't believe me. So the next day they walk into the camp, and they're like, did you tell our daughter this? Like, is this really happening? She's like, yeah, we're going to go down to the D.C. Washington Mystics. They were playing Phoenix Mercury at the time. And so, you know, Elena doesn't flash a lot. No. So you don't know much about her and her family dynamic a little bit. So whole story changes. We drive down in a limo right from the end of the day at camp, go to the gym, tickets, you know, ticket booth, VIP, walk down to our seats. You know, we just keep walking to the floor. Like, I'm like, oh, our seats are on the floor tonight. Game doesn't start. They're warming up. Players are saying hello out of their warm-ups to Elena. Right. You know, she had a lot of recognition, and, you know, that's a lot of responsibility too, you know, to uphold yourself as that number one player, because the number one players at the next level are already seeing you as that. Yeah. It's not just you yourself or all the, you know, McDonald's All-Americans, you know, UConn, things like that. After the game, we get to go into the locker room. You know, I got all these players' signatures and things like that. The vice president of the WNBA sends me a care package to my house. I mean, you know, the whole nine. So next day I pull up to camp, and I'm talking about this story to everybody at the camp. So I just knew I was special in a lot of situations, even going to Hicks Anderson Center. Very special. And, you know, you don't want to get rid of that. You don't want to lose that identity. There's a lot of things you have to
Can I ask you a question?
it.
Do you think, too, what she gave you was a visual, right? I think sometimes what children can't do is they can't see the end goal, right? Their parents or whatever are saying, do this, do this. Yeah. Do you agree with this sentiment that gave you a little inside peek at a lifestyle that you wanted?
Yeah. I want to get... You want to see the routes that you have to take, especially when you're young. Like you said, you don't know the end goal, but there's always this one objective or multiple objectives that kind of add to each other. It's have an audience, gain recognition, number one, winner. Yeah. You know, and the consistency of that. Because when you lose, or when something like a knee injury or a certain college doesn't give you the offer that you wanted, you know, how do you reroute back to that goal and not lose your identity and not lose sight of who you are and what you want to accomplish? You know, it's different. It's not, you know, I just want to get through these 4 years, or after I repair this knee and go 6 months rehab, I'm good. It's like, no, I got to get back on top. I got to be top dog.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about that. And then in the high school journey, of course, if people don't know, if you want to kind of just touch on that, you went through a lot, you had a lot of highs and lows in that 4 year, actually, I'll say 5 year period, because you're an 8th grade starter, but that didn't even come easy, right?
Starter. Well, there it is. So 8th grade, I went to Ursuline in 7th, so I had to do the CYM.
Right.
Then I moved to 8th grade, and it's summer league, way before you even tried out for the high school in November. And then my dad, he's pushing. Can she play on the summer league team? She wants to start early, blah, blah, blah. So we go to the Hocus and Pal. Like, yeah, she can play. Play my first game as an 8th grader. Did very well. Next day, never mind, she can't play. You're going to have to wait till tryouts. And that was just solely based on parents' complaints.
Right.
And you dealt with that back then. You dealt with drama and, I sent 3 kids here. I paid full tuition. I did this, or I'm so-and-so. And, my dad was somebody, everybody is somebody. So once you start the comparison of that, it's like, all right, there's other reasons for these things, which John Noonan did not care about. But at the same time, he respected the school and his position, and he said, we're going to make this work in a different way. So 8th grade year, I was 6th man. Came off the bench. 8th graders couldn't start. Almost a rule that was created. And, it's different now with Giselle, which is what I like to see. I like to see rules change, or rules not even be a rule.
Yeah,
and it's very
about,
important.
Yeah.
Even one day, maybe 7th grade can start playing high school
if they're talented enough.
If the talent is there, if the push is there from somebody, parents, parental guidance, trainer guidance. And so first couple of games, teammates weren't really banging with me. If I subbed them out, they didn't like that. If I played more minutes, didn't like that. A lot of plays directed towards me, get her a shot, didn't like that. But once we started getting more wins, shots going in.
Winning cures everything, right?
Man, sure does. And so we actually went down to D.C. my 8th grade year for the Tina Thompson Classic, which is now called She Got Game. Only 8 teams, Riverdale Baptist, Bishop McNamara. And that's where I met my trainer, Keith Veeney. He was running the tournament. 8th grader coming off the bench. We were down 10, 11. Come in, tied
Well, you got to
game,
hold on,
up
but
the
you
lead.
don't miss out. Don't say come off the bench. You got to say how. And John says this
Yeah,
story
he does.
very well.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want me to say this part.
Yeah.
So the way Johnny tells this story is y'all were getting cooked, and I use that
Early.
term that term now that's popular. Y'all were getting cooked, and John said he looked down the bench. He looked at every kid, and let's say he's looking, and every kid looked right away. Like they were like, nope, don't look at me. He said there was one kid on the bench that was like, what?
Yeah,
I'm ready.
I was ready.
And he said, all right, let's give her a shot.
Yeah.
He down 20 or 18, I think 18. You're down 18. He puts you in and just swap,
Yeah.
like shots just go.
I mean, you got to go. One thing my dad always told me was, you're here for one reason and one reason only. So, not that I had the same fears
Right.
or same doubts. Oh, we may lose by 30.
Right.
Or, but it's also like, you never know who's in this gym. You
Yeah.
never know who you
Sure.
could become. You got to, keep climbing the ropes. And obviously I knew we were in D.C., big basketball city. I'm trying to build my name as much as I can.
Yeah.
I'm just a kid from Claymont.
Yeah.
And, I had built some noise in Delaware so far. Oh, the 8th grader, Elena brought her over here. The girl who could shoot a lot.
Right.
So, but, at the same time, it's like, I also heard a lot of, oh, she's the ball hog. She jacks up shots. Oh,
Yeah.
she's too young, too slow, too short. You hear it all. So when you're in a competitive environment, again, reminded me of West Center City in Wilmington, Delaware.
You're
We're
not-
at
you're
Bishop
not- you're
McNamara
that- yeah,
in
that's-
DC.
yeah.
It's the same environment. And I mean, great experience. And I met my trainer, like I said, Keith Veeney, who's, the relationship that we kind of have is the relationship that we have.
Yes.
And stuck with me to my last game at Villanova, end of my playing career. Currently trains for the Dallas Mavericks, player development
Yeah.
coach. So I've seen him grow. We're never going to stop growing.
No.
Whether we're in the game of basketball or not, but because of those resources and relationships that I've built over time, I'm like, no, basketball is for me. I'm going to stay in this journey. Even if I, get rejected here or don't get this job position that would have advanced me to the next level, I'm going to figure out a way to do that.
Yeah.
So, 8th grade year was nice. Get to the Bob in March, and unfortunately, that's when I tore my ACL.
Right.
So, that was
That
those
was the first. That was the first
started
time.
to kind of,
Yeah.
with what we're talking about, doubts and fears, and, as a player, when you step on the court, you eliminate that.
Yeah.
With injuries, it's not on your time.
But do you think, I think as adults, I think we view injury. Do you think, I'll say this, as a child, you get injured, your ACL is big, it's 6 months, that minimum 6 months, you're sidelined.
It's the first
But
time
you
I was getting
said,
surgery.
you said the day of after surgery, your dad puts you, because you did it with my daughter with a hurt ankle, you put her, you're on the chair, you're doing shots, you're working on upper body, right? You can't walk, you're immobile. But, and that's where I give even some credit too. Your next day, you're not done basketball. It's just the path has changed.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you can't rest for long. So, found out on a Monday I tore my ACL. Huge devastation. Got to get surgery. You know, all that week I'm going on YouTube, ACL surgery, freaking out, drills and holes and stuff. You know, it's intense. It's not just like they're repairing something. It's, you know, I was 13 years old. And doctors were like, oh, we're going to have to do this differently because you're young and growth plates and everything like that. I'm thinking my world is done.
Right.
Friday, I get the surgery, and I'm back in school Monday morning.
Yeah.
And, you know, I had to have my classmates help me. Ursuline's 4 flights of stairs, small school, but, you know, we made it, never resting. There's always a way to make it through. You know, you're not just going to step out of this because you're dealing with this. And if anything, we're going to add more to the pot.
Right.
And see how we can get through that. But, you know, it's also, you know, I wanted to be in school. I wanted to be surrounded by my classmates and things like that. I never wanted to skip out or stay home and not be a part of this. Like, I want to be a part of it, whether I'm playing there. You know, I supported my teammates that AAU season all summer, went to the tournament, sat on the bench. But, yeah, we was in the chair outside, legs sticking out like this. Huge brace, couldn't really move, but dribbling under the leg, around the back of the chair, shooting up here, you know, Larry Bird style, just high release and heavy medicine balls in front of the rim. And so you never have to ask, like, oh, why did she become a great shooter? Or why does she shoot 40% from the three-point line? Like, it's all that gym work, too, once you get back on your feet. But it's the little things that you do or you try to do or be creative and educate yourself. You know, my dad probably never sat in a chair and shot the ball. Right. Because why would you? So, you know, you could say certain things, you know, timing and all these injuries led me to a place, but it was really the main objectives from the beginning. So no matter what happens in between that, you're going to remember who you want to be, how you want to get there, and it's the goal orientation of it. You don't set goals from the beginning, whether you have obstacles or not, you're not going to get through it. You're not going to be that the one that you need to be for yourself. So, you know, the injuries was a setback. You know, if I could go back, would I change it? Not really, because it wasn't going to matter what I would have went through, because the goals was there, the idea was there, the vision was there. And it never really changed until I got, you know, a bit older, 20, 21. You know, college is a little different. You talk about teammates, you know, different aspect. You're around adults a lot. You see how other adults are in their job positions. Yeah. You start seeing the real world a lot bigger, you know.
Let's backtrack real quick. You do go through 2 ACLs in Ursuline, but overall 3 chips, right, in the 5 years?
So 8th grade year, tore it, and then freshman year came back and won. So that was my first.
Freshman year.
And then sophomore, junior year, lost to St. Elizabeth's in the Final Four both years, which was crazy because we beat them twice in the regular season. So it's always hard to beat a team.
Playoffs are different. I mean, but you'll say, I mean, everything is everything.
I mean, that's the preparation. It just, you can't win it by yourself. Right. And you're not supposed to. Right. You know, so you look back and you're like, all right, you know, some of your teammates weren't ready for that experience. You know, it's just doesn't work out the way you want to. No. But senior year had to go out with a bang, won it. So 2-time state champion. Yeah. So, and senior year, obviously my daughter was there. And that's where I want to bring it back to on that. One of her best memories, I remember she came home, Daddy, Adrianna she was in lower school. Daddy, Adrianna brought the championship to the lower school. And so, you know what I mean? There is that little sisterhood that Ursuline has, which is awesome. Let's also, because one thing, and this is your podcast. I don't want to take away from you, but you can't say where you decided to go to school and not talk about some of the other Delaware things that have happened within that school. And people know what I'm probably about to say. You and a certain gentleman named Dante DiVincenzo decided on the same school, same year. Yeah, which was a shock to me.
But definitely take us through that. But from your journey of it, you choose where? Villanova.
It was October of my junior year, so I cut my recruitment really short. You know, and this kind of understood helped me understand, where Elena was coming from. Because, we didn't talk much because of both of our, routines and everyday things we had to do. But I'm like, how do I know when the school is the right fit when I like a bunch? I like a bunch of coaches.
Right.
I like all these cities, the locker rooms, the arenas. It's crazy. How do you really choose or know which one is for you? And that's when she started talking about, like, her relationships, what's important, having your people around you, support system. And she actually said, if UConn and Villanova weren't in the Big East together at the time, she would have transferred to Villanova. But back then, you had to sit out 2 years if you transferred to any conference. Yeah. Again, there's no rules now, but it's crazy how that alters your decisions. So Villanova offered me when I was a freshman in high school, and I didn't talk to them for about 2 years. So I called them up, which is crazy. You don't, with all the love and appreciation that I was having, college coaches coming to Ursuline for the day, wanted to see me in a classroom, come to my house, see me work out. I mean, it's very involved.
Yeah.
Every day was a new coach, same conversations over and over. So I called the school that didn't go through this process with me, solely because it was close to home, highest education close to home.
Right.
Also counted that in. And, Villanova basketball wasn't where it was when I got there.
Mm-hmm.
No national men's championships.
Yeah.
Not even like Big East champions.
Right.
So pretty much committed. I said,
Yeah.
You still got a scholarship for me? And they were like, well, we offered about 5 point guards in your class, so whoever commits first will take it. And that's not something that you bet on either.
Right.
You want the school that's like, no, you're our number one point guard. It's you. We want you.
This is where I'll credit you. That right there doesn't. I don't feel like that statement scares Adrianna Hahn.
Hell no.
You see what I'm saying?
No.
You know what I mean?
Because I said, I'm committing,
Right.
so you better tell them. The offer's not on the table for them.
I don't think, if I told you I got a team of 9 girls and you have no idea who those, this is, I think, the thing I love about your personality. If I said to you, Adrianna, I got 9 girls and they're ballers and I'm making a team, I want you on the team.
Yeah.
I don't think Adrianna Hahn is scared of whoever those 9 people are. Does that make sense?
No. 100%. My dad was pissed. He was pissed. He's like, why you want to go to Villanova? They're not showing you the love that NC State's showing you. And that was my number 1 at the time. And was he right? Sure.
Yeah.
But it was kind of like, his approach had to change a little bit. I'm getting older. He had to trust me for my own judgment about myself. And that may have been a first. Doesn't mean you have a regret or you wouldn't do the same thing. But you learn and you accept that. And, 2015, you can't complain. You walk into the University of the men's national champions on the other side. So, you had a certain elite level there. And I got very close to Jay Wright and some of those guys. And, actually my senior year of high school, Jay Wright would go to Sally's and he's like, Adrianna, come here for a second. You got to tell Dante to commit to Villanova. So he was, you talk about Jay Wright's power and position, even trying to go through me just to get a recruit. And, that's something special. And, 3 years later, Jay Wright invites me onto his podcast.
Yeah.
First woman to do that.
Yeah.
Not from his program.
Well, let's talk Nova too. You have one of the things about you. I think the proudest thing, and I hear you say it, but it's also true. You tell the kids you have a Big East record to your name. Mm-hmm. You did your thing at Nova.
Yeah. I definitely wanted to keep my name forever somewhere stamped. I graduated in 3 years, so in order to transfer to a school without having to sit out, you had to get your degree. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sitting out because I wasn't redshirting as a freshman either. So I was like, let me add all my classes in the summer, kind of get ahead, and that worked out. And back then, you didn't have a transfer portal. Right. So if you wanted to decommit from your school, that's essentially what you would do, and then go visit another school. I'm like, I'm not decommitting from, or I'm not telling Villanova I'm leaving and not knowing where I'm going to go. Yeah. No. I was runner of the show over there. Ball in my hands, 35 minutes a game, whatever. So I'm in LA doing summer internships and production, things like this, podcasts, movies and stuff. It was dope. And I got the opportunity to go meet with the UCLA coach on campus. And they were about it too. Right. And it was kind of like, transfer to UCLA, be in a higher level program, more TV time, more exposure to the WNBA level. how long is that
Well,
really going to last?
I think we need to backtrack too in that statement, because I think what we need to share with the audience on you and people who don't know you, a lot of people who know you, we're going to talk a little NIL. Yeah. You were you see a lot of more women basketball players do this now. Mm-hmm. I always say my wife has a funny story of how she met you. One of your teammates went to my wife the day of the championship game. I got to say this story. And, if she watches, maybe we'll send this to her. My wife does Yanni's makeup before a game, right? Like, you and your era, but you specifically were that era of women really doing full glam before basketball games, right? Like, that was kind of, I feel like that was like an era, like a thing that was starting with women basketball players of, we're going to glam up a little bit for these games. And, now it's like like Angel Reese and all these women who have their lashes and you know what I mean?
I mean, the whole experience was a little different, right? So Instagram came out when I was like 8th grade, freshman year, and you're like, oh, public profile. I grew up on Facebook and stuff, but everybody was on Facebook. Right. So, that was more statuses and truth or dare or something, rate me on a 1 to 10. Right. Instagram was like, oh, well, they're going to rate you and you're going to see based on the likes and stuff. Right. So this and the follower amount. NIL is an interesting topic, but
your social media blew up.
Started it at Ursuline, I would say. Okay. It wasn't just me. I would make my teammates. We'd wear a white uniform and then go in the gym, turn the lights off, make a dark background, and then flash on the camera. Right. Some poses like this.
Right.
And
so that's where the Instagram started.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It wasn't even, and the glam, we'd put makeup on and stuff. You're at an all-girls school. We got more Sally's fans in the gym than our own. So, we put it on. And, like I said, senior year, myself and Dante ran the show. And that was a shock to me. Like I said, I was on the phone with him the night before, and he's like, I really love Syracuse. It's my number one. Definitely doing this. Next day, I go to school, and in the papers, Dante DiVincenzo commits to Villanova. And I'm like, oh, that must have been a switch. Right. Those switches can change with no reasoning, no explanation. Just like my dad was pissed. I couldn't really explain to him why, but, it was just suited for me in that moment to take this route. Yeah. And, that could have been the same for him. So if NIL would have been around back then for us pulling on campus, the champions, they would have got a lot of bread. Yeah. They still got a lot of bread due to them, in my opinion, even if they're making some NBA money and whatever. It's really just the process of how things were. But to be able to build the Instagram profile, it was for the attention. It was a similar attention that I got on the court. Like, also the stereotypes of women's basketball players. I was so tired and pissed off about, one, people assuming my sexuality and assuming the sexuality of my teammates and my AU teammates and where they went to school and stuff. And, look at somebody for who they are. Mm-hmm. If you at least want to judge them based on that or guess what it is, don't guess it just because they play basketball and they're a girl in a uniform. Yeah. Shit, we could do this a lot better than your girlfriend who don't play sports. Right. So.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah. But that's what I want to give you credit. I think what your generation, I'll say, or your era, you hear a lot of the word era now. Your era was that of independence, but also, again, you kind of said, I don't want to throw, or I know we've had pride, so I want to be careful how I say some things. But I will say this, kind of how you had your adversity at Ursuline with being the youngest starter. Yeah. You had adversity at Nova, a Catholic, let's be honest too, a Catholic university with like, okay, well, wait, she's wearing makeup and she's getting Instagram followers. So they were very, and again, I want to be careful how I say it, but we've had some talks about how they were very careful because at the end of the day, which you understood, we've always talked about this, and I want to be respectful of Villanova. They were like, wait a minute, just know, Catholic school, you know what I mean? Yeah, they wanted to have a little bit of say on what you were posting, right?
Yeah, business is business at the end of the day. So, back then I would have been like, I'm hesitating a little bit as Villanova. I don't want to risk my school, the professionalism, name on the front of my jersey, but even just explaining what happened in the past to me is not, because it's changed. Yeah. There were rules that they had to follow, rules I had to follow, certain guidelines. So you can't, all you could say is, oh, I wish it was back then. Right. And, that goes to both ends. But even just to be able to sell your last name on a jersey in the bookstore would have been just enough. Right. I had to work as a server my junior and senior year of college.
To have extra money.
To have extra money. I was in grad school my 4th year.
Yeah.
I ended up staying at Villanova, not transferring to UCLA. So I only had class twice a week at night. I'm like, what do I do during the day? And there was another stereotype of like, oh, server, oh, waitress.
Right.
Who,
but
you?
you're like, yeah.
I'm
but,
like,
me.
I'm going to go try that.
Yeah.
Just because of the doubt and how you just formed that into a bubble, I'm going to figure it out for myself.
Well,
actually,
but the cool thing, and I always wanted you, and you have done, not that I wanted, it's that you, again, going back, if one thing I can tell people watching this about you, that where my adoration is for you and why I want my daughters around you, you don't care what Jimmy, John, or Bob think about you.
Mm-mm. And you do when it comes to building your identity.
Sure, relationships.
Because there's so many, arrows thrown at you and but that's the beauty of how strong you want your identity to be and how serious you are about it, because, you're also forming it for people to understand, and it's new to them.
Yeah.
They always say it's lonely at the top, and I always kind of remind myself as I go through some of these things, even to this day, being an entrepreneur or just woman-owned business and by myself. I don't have coworkers.
No.
It's lonely at the top in many areas, but it's okay to be at the same time. I'm looking down. I still always look up. I got some levels that I got to reach, but majority of the time I'm looking down, and not down, but knowing that people are looking up to me
right.
in a sense, and they want to get to a certain place, or they trust my advice that I give them and the respect that I give them, even though they're in this position and they're not at the top of the pyramid yet.
Well, we're coming to the kind of last lap, and I want to there's a couple things I want to try to wrap up in these final few minutes, but sure. You graduate there. I don't want to take any credit or anything, but I know when I found out and where my daughter was coming up, and Coach Noonan tells me, well, Adrianna's home, so I call your dad, I call you. Yeah. I'm like, yo, I got this 8-year-old. Yep. And then COVID hits. I don't know if you remember.
I do, because that was the first year for me to enter the work world, and I'm like, this is shit.
And people watching this, I want to be very careful how I say this. I was one of the people that I said, look, what I was learning from COVID was if you were young and you were healthy and you weren't a senior citizens we were being told. See, I'm looking at the crew here for validation on this, and they're like, but. I said to you, hey, we got a hoop in the driveway. Will you come work with my daughter? Mm-hmm. And one thing I'll never forget, you were like, I'm there. Yeah. And during COVID, that's why I say you talk about family. Really, you were close with the people you were spending time with during COVID. Mm-hmm. So you became, again, you're a Hahn, don't get me wrong. But I was like, you were a Mahani for like 6 months, always at our house. We had dinners, like, you know what I mean? You would. Yeah. So real quick, and that's what I want to say, you took on, I asked you, I said, hey, I want Layla to have you as a role model and everything with her. Mm-hmm. But you came in, go ahead, you can take the story really, about how Hahn Hoops started.
Yeah, COVID made a lot of people not active. They still didn't want to not get out, but kind of, keep a routine. Yeah. And honestly, enjoy nature and go outside. And, we didn't have the beautiful 76ers field house at the time. And when you just see a young kid, Layla, that wanted to grow and work and didn't care about what she was dribbling on, or what basketball she was dribbling with, or what the basket board looked like. That's kind of what my dad introduced me to the game, is like, we're going to go outside regardless. Play, even if it's raining, sunny, got a shitty ball, and there's rocks and sticks and the gravel's cracked, it doesn't matter. No. Or if you're playing boys, it don't matter. We got to get down and dirty, because later the glory will shine. We're not doing this for shining moments. And eventually then you get the gym. Yeah. So that's like AC gym, 76ers on the front. You can't beat it. Parking lot, bathrooms, everything. And by that time, her identity didn't change when she walked into that gym either. Right. So we were about the same business no matter where we were.
Well, and all of your and then that's what I'll say, and shout out to BPG and the Sixers. Mm-hmm. And again, what I loved watching, and I'll say this on you, and so I don't want to take over, but I just wanted to kind of, like I said, why I have you on. It was awesome to see a kid, and I say this respectfully. I know you're I don't want to say your age, but I know. Yeah. But it was awesome to see you just come right out of college and because I was starting 6 a.m. Run at the time, right? So it was awesome to see you start your business and go through your stuff. And one thing too, I'll say, you don't just train these kids. London's right here. London, come here. last couple of minutes. Who came to a game this weekend?
Adrianna.
And she comes and supports all your. Come here. She comes and supports all your games. Huh?
Yes.
All your games. Mm-hmm. But you support these kids, and you're there, not just their trainer. Well, what do you say to kids in school?
I have the best basketball coach.
Say,
I have the best basketball coach.
Yeah. And what do they say to that? What do they say after that?
They don't really care.
Yeah. I guess what? Hey, it only matters to a certain few.
Yeah.
And that's why it's going to go a long way. Right?
But how did you do this weekend? Because of having the best basketball coach.
Good.
Good. Awesome. You're doing
really well. I saw her gain a lot of confidence and growth, and she plays against some boys, right? Tough as nails.
Awesome. Well, thank you for crashing the podcast tonight. I know you came here because your coach was here. So, anything else, Adrianna? I know like I said, there's so much we can talk about, and I tried to wrap everything up in one episode. Definitely, we'd love to have you for more.
Yeah.
But anything you want to that I might have missed that you want to share with people, we'll definitely put how to contact you and Hahn Hoops, and I know you take a lot of kids, let them come in, a couple sessions, like kind of free, see if it's for them. But anything I missed that you want to kind of share?
I mean, we could talk all day, and I'm sure this one's got some questions for me. And I always ask her questions.
Yeah.
I'm always trying to hear, them talk and think for themselves and create their own answers.
Yeah.
And remember that, even write them down, their goals and things like that. But it's just the work is in the beauty, or the beauty is in the work. I'm sorry, and I'm just excited to see what the next couple of years are. It's been 4 years for Hahn Hoops.
Yeah.
And there's so much has been done. We have the teams, the training. I have the ability to help with the Delaware Bluecoats in the gym, the G League. That was new, and it's just exciting to open the doors and have so much growth in there. And especially for the kids, they meet their friends that could last forever, and their competitors, and that's what helps them grow.
You're there 5 days a week. What I love is it's like her childhood. It's now being able to mimic a little bit of the old school. It's an after school. It's basically you are a after school activity that kids finish school. It's funny watching the kids come to you, book bag straight from school, change in the field house bathroom. They don't have locker rooms for these kids. You know what I mean?
So it's like, but it's funny you bring that up. London comes in the gym today, and I'm like, "What's wrong with you?" I can tell immediately. Eyes rubbing and stuff. I'm like, "I'm tired." Shoulders all shrugged. I said, "What did I say?" I said, "What you want, a tissue?" So it's just that push, because I know she's tired.
Right.
I went through this. I'm tired. Work's got to start at 3:30, 4 o'clock, and we got to go 2 hours, 2.5, compete against the boys. We don't know what somebody went through that day. We got a lot of homework to finish up tonight, and she pushed through. I think it's the ability to share your emotions and be comfortable with that, but then also have that push and, remember this is never ending, and she has to perform and do her best. And it's hard to do your best when things are pounding on you.
Well, let me end on this. I'll say this is, with having 2 daughters, what was great with you, and there's very few in this state, I'll say, having a female that's been through it. I think as a father, there's very little I can say that they're like, oh, my dad's right. I'm dad, right? But having a woman who's been through it that can also say to them, hey, wait, this is how, you know what I mean?
Right.
They can put accreditation, is that the word?
Yeah.
To your words have credibility to them and weight to them. And that's what I know. Because if I say something, you're like, what, Dad? You're not right. But then if Adrianna says it, what? It's right? Yeah, look at you.
Yeah. I think they see I have responsibility, and it's like, oh, she's big dog at the top, or she's got the keys to the door, and her basketballs are hers, and the last name of the jerseys is hers. And so, there's a respect level there, but they're also like, like we talked about earlier, you don't know what's ahead. You don't, you have to go through it. And so it's interesting to them. And so as long as I keep it interesting for them, then it'll be interesting to them as well. So.
Well, Adrianna, thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, it's been great.
London, thank you for crashing the show. 6 a.m. Run community, 6 a.m. Run audience. We'll put everything, Delaware community that wants to maybe have their kids start a couple training sessions with Hahn Hoops. We'll put all that information in the bio. But again, Adrianna Hahn, thank you so much. Oh,
Thanks,
thank you guys.
Always.
And thank you, everyone.
Thank
Goodbye
you.
for now. Thanks, guys.